He's asked by the interviewer, what do you want to say about sanctions? Something else you've been working on, of course. What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? And Bessant says, okay, there are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believed the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran. And it's worked, because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the streets. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. It's an amazing statement. So amazing that the New York Times didn't dare to report it. The Washington Post didn't dare to report it. Because what Bessant is explaining is that the United States has used its financial means to bring down the government, to bring people out on the streets, to bring mass unrest. And things are going in a very positive way, says Mr. Bessant. So the vulgarity of it is so stunning that, of course, the mainstream media won't even touch it. But what they do is run stories every day about the mismanagement, the corruption, the economic collapse, the suffering of the people, without saying that our Treasury Secretary explained that's the American game. And I have spoken to people recently explaining, yes, they cannot get paid for their oil because of what the United States is doing. The payments don't come. Everybody's under sanctions. Everybody's under threat. Every bank in the world refuses to handle any of the transactions. That's the U.S. weaponization of the dollar. And the design is to create chaos, to create bank failures, to create a currency collapse, to bring people out on the streets. As Bessant says, this is why the people took to the streets. So he even gives the chain of causation and blesses it. It's moving in a very positive way here. Okay, if this is the kind of world that people think we're going to be safe in, I'm sorry to say they're going to find that this is the absolute route to annihilation and disaster. This is pure gangsterism against every principle. And why Mertz is a party to the gangsterism, or the Europeans are a party to the gangsterism, beats the hell out of me, I have to say, because they were also parties to the negotiation of the JCPOA. And they watched how the United States killed it. So they know the truth, but they don't speak the truth.
Well, You just heard Dr. Jeffrey Sachs deliver one of the most shocking revelations in recent memory. The U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessant, publicly admitted that America used financial warfare to collapse Iran's currency, destroy its banking system, and push its people into the streets. And then said, things are moving in a very positive way. Let that sink in. No bombs, no troops, no declarations of war, just sanctions, dollar control, and deliberate economic sabotage, all designed to topple a sovereign government. And they call it economic statecraft. But as Sachs says, that's not diplomacy. That's gangsterism. And it's happening right now, while the world pretends not to see it. Let's unpack what Bessant said, and why this isn't just foreign policy. It's war by other means. Sachs begins by exposing a stunning public statement. Scott Bessant, U.S. Treasury Secretary, told the Economic Club of New York last March. I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse. I would take my money out if I were an Iranian citizen. Then he boasts, President Trump ordered maximum pressure, and it worked. How? A major bank collapsed. The central bank started printing money. Dollar shortages exploded. Imports vanished. People took to the streets. And Bessant calls this a very positive development. That's not analysis. That's a confession. He's saying, we broke their economy, and we're happy about it. And he even gives the chain of causation. Sanctions, currency collapse, bank failures, public unrest, regime destabilization. This is not accidental. This is by design. And it's called hybrid warfare. But the West only uses that term when others do it. When the U.S. does it, it's policy. Sachs reveals the real weapon behind this, the weaponization of the U.S. dollar. Because nearly all international transactions go through U.S.-controlled systems. SWIFT, dollar clearing, correspondent banking, the U.S. can freeze any nation's assets, block oil payments, force global banks to cut ties, destroy access to credit. And that's exactly what they did to Iran. Sachs says, I have spoken to people recently who explain, yes, they cannot get paid for their oil because of what the United States is doing. Payments don't come. Banks refuse to process anything. Even humanitarian aid gets blocked, all under the guise of compliance. But it's not compliance. It's coercion. It's economic siege. And it's been going on for years. But now, the architect has stepped forward and taken credit. And still, the world says nothing. Here's what makes this so disturbing. The New York Times didn't report it. The Washington Post ignored it. Why? Because if they reported it, they'd have to admit. The U.S. government openly admits to waging covert economic war against another country. They'd have to quote Bessant saying, this is why the people took to the streets. And that would mean the U.S. doesn't want reform. It wants collapse. It wants regime change. So instead of reporting the truth, the media runs daily stories about Iran's mismanagement, corruption, economic failure, but never asks, what if the economy failed because the U.S. made it fail? They won't say it, because it shatters the narrative. Sachs doesn't hold back. This is pure gangsterism against every principle. And he's right. Imagine if Russia froze American bank accounts, blocked Walmart imports, caused inflation to hit 60%, and said, see, Americans are rising up. Things are moving positively. We call it an act of war. But when the U.S. does it to Iran, it's diplomacy, it's pressure, it's non-military action. But let's be clear, there's no such thing as non-violent regime change. Starving a population, crashing an economy, destroying livelihoods, that's violence. Just slower, more hidden, more cowardly, and far more widespread. Sachs ends with a devastating question. Why are European leaders like Mer's party to this gangsterism? Because they know the truth. They watched the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, work. They saw sanctions lifted. They saw Iran comply. And then they watched the U.S. rip it up, not because Iran violated it, but because Netanyahu wanted it dead. In Europe, they stayed silent. Again, just like over Gaza, just like over Ukraine. They signed onto the sanctions. They helped enforce them. They became accomplices in economic warfare. And now, they pretend they're defending peace. But peace isn't built on starving children, crashing economies, or forcing nations into chaos. Peace is built on respect, dialogue, and sovereignty. And none of that exists today. In conclusion, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs gives us a rare and unfiltered look at the real tools of American empire. Not aircraft carriers, not drones, not spies, but the dollar, and how it's being used, not to promote prosperity, but to destroy nations quietly, systematically, and illegally. Bessant didn't hide it. He bragged. And the silence from the West? That's the loudest sound of all. Stay tuned for more analysis right here on The Informed Perspective. Until next time, stay informed and think critically.
So I think it's all going to fall apart. And at the same time, of course, we're looking at Europe and we're seeing all these nationalist parties all over the continent who are effectively coming to power increasingly. That is to say, they're reaching a point in terms of popular support that makes it impossible to keep them from power any longer. And the good news is that the kind of nationalism these states are all espousing has nothing to do with attacking anyone. It has everything to do with what is in the interest of their own country, what's good for their societies, how do they protect themselves, their culture, their identity, their way of life, as well as their economic system. And I think this is the death knell of globalism, frankly. And whether President Trump is playing, as his supporters say, 4D chess, urging everybody to do sanctions the way he is, I have no idea. I rather suspect that some people in his administration are probably thinking in terms of further divorcing, certainly Western Europe from Russia and China and other countries. But frankly speaking, I don't see any evidence that that will happen. So I think his plea for everyone else to sanction Russia, sanction China, sanction Turkey, sanction India, and remember, many of the countries that he's determined that we should sanction in one way or another are historic friends, strategic partners of the United States. But it doesn't seem to matter anymore. And that's the tragedy of all of this. It goes back to the tariff war that he launched. Suddenly, everyone in the world is treated as the enemy and is subjected to tariffs. There was no discrimination. So again, I fear that he's quite serious and he's going to be monumentally disappointed because I don't think any of it is going to work.